Hi, welcome to Semiconductor Geopolitics, Taiwan's View. This is the second episode of our cross-strait series, yes, the Taiwan Strait. In the last episode, we told the story of TSMC dispersing its capacity to Arizona. Actually, it was only one of the cases of global supply chain restructuring. Why restructure? There must be a push that made the restructuring necessary. What is that mighty force? In this episode, we'll tell you what it is and how Taiwan's chip industry reacts to it. It was not until March 2018 that the international situation began to change drastically. The Trump administration announced the 301 report, which the media consider it the start of the US-China trade war. Later, people from all walks of life soon discovered that the core of the competition between the US and China was actually technology. So the term tech war came into being. In the second half of 2020, TSMC's Arizona fab was still in construction while the US election was in full swing. On January 20, 2021, the new but experienced President Joe Biden took office. On February 24th, he issued Executive Order 10417, requiring his subordinates to submit policy research reports within 100 days on the supply chains of 4 industries. The semiconductor sector was obviously the most urgent one because at that time, the automobile industry had miscalculated the demand during the pandemic and fell into a serious shortage of chips. Since the chip shortage was serious, before the report was completed, Biden invited both chip manufacturers and buyers to join an online meeting at the White House on April 12th. The photo of him holding a wafer has become a historical moment of the chip shortage crisis. Of course, TSMC Chairman Mark Liu also participated in the online meeting because TSMC was almost the only foundry capable of squeezing more capacity out, whether it's legacy or advanced chips. Well, TSMC was willing to reallocate its capacity canceled by those car makers to them again, or should we say it had no choice but to do so? On June 8th, the Biden administration's ministries efficiently finished the 100-day report. This was when Biden's goal to rebuild the supply chain became certain and clear, though he had mentioned this strategy when he ran for president in 2019.
For us, we already have a location and campus in Bay Area. So the Department of Commerce have come to us, asked to whether we'd like to build a design center in Arizona. We frankly rejected because it's very hard for us. We're a mid-sized IC design company. We need to focus. So we definitely continue to increase our investment in US and to assist our customers in US also grow together internationally.
美国要重回半导体制造，当然我觉得我会打一个问号啦。我想我的看法跟张忠谋董事长非常像，就是美国要重回制造其实是不容易的。实际上，美国半导体是在50到70年代是美国领先的，可是从80年代以后，整个制造就流到亚洲来了，从日本、韩国、台湾到中国大陆。所以事实上，从日本之后，美国的半导体制造就是一去不复返了。
Taiwan's semiconductor supply chain is indeed going global, but is such strategy directly related to Biden's goal to rebuild the supply chain?
我们都知道台湾是在地震带，万一晶圆厂受损，它可以立刻请中国、美国、日本甚至德国的产能赶快弥补上台湾受损的产能，这是供应的韧性。第二个，就近的接近在地市场。我们都知道，在日本跟德国的投资是以车用晶片为主，日本的晶片再加上消费性电子的晶片，所以台湾会在全世界投资，主要是追求供应链韧性跟接近在地市场。
我们把制造基地做这个比较分散式的发展， 一方面可以减轻将来在供应链断裂的这种可能造成的伤害，能够及时的去应付各地区对半导体的需求，这个对台湾的厂商来讲是很重要的。
Regarding the restructuring of global semiconductor supply chain, Taiwan's chip manufacturing capability is the pivot. U.S. expects TSMC to increase its scale of investment in America, which could be seen in U.S. political heavyweights visiting in Taiwan, which is something they seldom did before. In early August 2022, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives Pelosi visited Taiwan. At the luncheon held by former President Tsai Ing-wen, TSMC founder Morris Chang warned Pelosi directly. It was terribly naive of the United States to think that it could rapidly spend its way into one of the most complex electronics manufacturing markets in the world. On December 6, 2022, while holding the tool-in ceremony at a new Arizona fab, TSMC further announced that the process technology at the new Arizona fab would be upgraded from 5 nanometer to 4 nanometer, and the total investment would increase from 12 billion to 40 billion US dollars, an amount close to the price of 3 Ford-class aircraft carriers. It would be one of the largest foreign direct investment projects in the history of the United States. Moreover, TSMC promised to export its 3 nanometer technology when building the second fab in 2026. At that time, 3 nanometer chips had not even been mass produced in Taiwan yet. It's a pity that the Arizona project has been postponed. For more information on why the construction of TSMC Fab 21 in Arizona was delayed, please refer to the previous episode, TSMC's Arizona Fab, Compromise or Historical Recurrence. Senior TSMC employees recall that when they worked at TSMC 20 or even only 10 years ago, they had never needed to consider geopolitical risks at all. Times have changed.
Let's say if China does something, for example, saying that they want a blockade, the sea lines that are blockade, the air traffic, so that the supply chain to a certain degree from Taiwan will be disrupted. If that happens, that will be a U.S. serious headache. So I would say from the U.S. perspective, there's no place that is safer than somewhere in the U.S., okay, to avoid this problem. In this instance, it is Arizona that U.S. is thinking about and TSMC is doing right now.
But I think 2 years ago, people here were not very comfortable with TSMC's decision. But now I think we are more comfortable because we understand that TSMC has to diversify their operation, not only because of US is a very important market, but also because of all these challenges here faced by TSMC. This lack of access to water, for example, and also the access to green electricity, all make TSMC expanding their operations very much difficult as well as costly.
I think more and more TSMC have to cooperate with the government in order to expand in Taiwan. Throughout the period, we see that by choosing the site of the fab, sometimes it will have to correspond to the local elections and how would that benefit the local current mayor, so on and so forth. So, and also for this kind of chip manufacturing, they need a lot of government support in providing electricity or the water supply, all kinds of, right. And with that, I think in a way that the TSMC is quite dependent on the government support, and that is make them vulnerable to government's quote-unquote persuasion to go to invest in the United States.
趁着这个机会，我们强大的半导体制造的厂商可以把它的制造基地分散到国外，不是集中在台湾跟中国大陆啊。在这种状况之下，我们又可以守住我们的重要的技术研发的内涵，全部留在台湾。
现在不仅是台湾缺人缺工啊，全世界都把半导体产业当成一个很重要的战略产业哈，所以全世界都在抢人。我们的半导体制造业的龙头台积电，过去几年以来，其实他所要的人才啊，都往学术卓越型的大学去发展。但是这几年，越来越体认到中高阶实作人才的需要，所以啊，都到学校里面来提早卡位啊，半导体产业相关，上游、中游、下游的产业都在抢人。
当我们往外扩展的时候，不管是在美国、在日本、在欧洲，如果我们能够跟当地的学术研发机构也合作，不是把它当作市场而已，而是合作，也会弥补我们在台湾人才不足的这样的压力。
Here we have a saying in Taiwan, crisis is also a turning point. It seems that Biden's strategy has a significant impact on Taiwan at this moment. Well, the whole situation revolves around the geopolitics. If you are a customer of Taiwan's chip industry, maybe you would like to know if there's a solution to this conundrum.
I think to a certain extent the key issue here is whether the Taiwanese government and Taiwanese firms could persuade the US government and US firms that we could manage cross-strait relations, right? And make sure that, okay, maybe the situation is tense between Taipei and Beijing, but it wouldn't go out of control. That's the key. If we could persuade them that this is not going to be a problem, then we wouldn't have to face this much pressure to diversify, which is essentially, to build up insurance for Taiwan's customers.
TSMC still have a lot of challenges to handle. For example, such as the policy continuity. If Trump is coming back, we don't know whether TSMC and other chip makers are continue to receive the same strong support as Biden administration. So I think that remains to be further observed.
This suggestion may not necessarily be helpful to the supply chains in other countries, since Taiwan's legal status is pretty unique. Most countries do not recognize Taiwan as a nation, but they all need a strategic resource we produce, semiconductors. If you enjoy our program, please like and hit that subscribe button. See you next time on the Cross-Strait series.